In this installation of the tech transfer series, we're going to talk about basic Git use. And again, as usual, most developers do use Git, but I noticed that some don't. And that's really a shame. I think everybody can benefit greatly from using Git. So let's just motivate this a little bit. The first question is, why Git? Why would you want to use Git? Git, if you've ever lost track of a file, if you've ever had a version of a file you didn't know what it was, or maybe one of your files that you sent out to a client had a different version than you expected, this is the type of use case that Git is great for. Git's great for a lot of other things, but the basic tools, the basic Git tool that I'm going to show you, or the basic Git commands, are going to be good for version tracking. At its heart, Git can be thought of as a library, so we can Git's a version control system, actually. So it's controlling versions of code. It's actually controlling your versions of code. You might think of Git largely as a library. That's a very good way to think about a version control system. And each of the books in the library would be a piece of code or a code base. And then you can update the books, right? All the changes are logged. And you can roll back or peruse previous versions of books. In addition to this, Git has a lot of other features. So let's just think about this briefly. You can update the books, meaning that you can check code out and you can change the code and then you can check it back in. So different from a traditional library, you would have the ability to add your knowledge to the library. All these changes are logged. So it's not only that you update the state of the library, but the library also has the previous states as well. It also has the author of each state. So it's good in that way. And then finally, you can roll back to a previous version. Let's say somebody on the team made a really bad choice, or maybe you, as happens often, made a bad choice and the code base came tumbling down. You can roll back to previous versions. Or you might say, well, back in August or back in February, code was working a lot differently and I want to see what was different about it. You can do that as well. So Git's really, even a basic use of Git can give you all these functions. So there's other add-ons with Git that you can have. We're not going to cover these, but I think it's worth talking about them. And as usual in this series, if you like something that you've seen, and there's a bite-sized video I can make about this, put it in the chat, make a request. If there's enough requests and I think it makes sense, we can add a video to the library with this. So some things are automation. You can automatically do pushes. You can automatically run queries against the history of this thing. Branches, different versions of the code base can go into branches and be perused by some sort of a gatekeeper, somebody who's responsible for gatekeeping the code. Everybody can have their own branch. Stashing is another way to put semi-permanent history into the code base, but not in the main branch. And then Git pages allow you to showcase any work that you did. And I think this is a huge value add for people who are making portfolios. Git runs on a basic workflow. I'll call that the basic Git flow. And these are the main commands that you should be very familiar with. The rest of them can get complicated. And I think you get a large portion of value, maybe 90% of the value with these simple commands. So git clone would be to clone a repository. Git pull to pull the status of the repository. Git fetch to get the status of the repository. Git add to add staged changes. Git commit to actually make a permanent change to the repository. And then finally git push will push it from your local machine to the web, the larger web. So let's just take a quick look at this stuff. So we can look at the setup here. If you look at my repository here, I've got my corporate website, and then I've got a bash command line. There are other ways to use Git, but it's very transparent when we start using the bash command line what exactly is happening. You might choose to use a more convenient manager later. So let's just take a quick look at how I might make a repository, just one way, right? I might be on the web like this. I will press repositories and take a look at my existing repositories, and then I can make a new repository. So this would be gitflow demo, gitflow demo. Okay. And this is available. You might want to write a description. This is for teaching Git. And then maybe make this public or private. In this case, it would be public. You can add a README file is a good thing to do. Having an empty repository is kind of, it's just sort of dangling, but you can do that as well. And then create my repository. So that creates the repository. The next step, so you can see that this is the initial commit. We can see the history of this repository here. It's only been committed here locally. And this is on the web, right? So it's out there in the cloud. Let me go ahead and grab the name. So I press this green button here, and I grab the cloning string over here. I want to just note, and this is not for now, but you have HTTPS, which is what we'll use. Then there's the SSH method. Okay. So from there, I'm going to go to my command line and find a convenient place. So print my working directory. I can see I'm on users. I can ls to see what's in here. I see that I have Dropbox and I have desktop. Let's put this one on the desktop. Now this is going to be a local version of the repository, and it should be somewhere convenient. So cd desktop. Okay. And then I'm going to type in git clone. That's one of those commands. And then v. Control V. So I paste the name of this gitflow demo there. Now you can see what's happening is it's doing a bunch of things, and we've actually had success here, right? We've received the objects. If I ls over here, I can find that gitflow demo has been pulled in. It should be one of these items. There it is. Okay. Now just a brief. I'm just going to briefly cd into that. And I'll ls, and I'm going to use -al so I can see hidden files, because some of the guts of this are important and hidden. So that .git is hidden. That's actually the local version of the history. So the README here probably doesn't have anything in it. Let's go and use the command line cat, which will give me the contents of this README file. README. You can see, oh, it says actually got gitflow demo is the name, and then this is for teaching Git. That's the description I put in there. So I'm just going to use echo and maybe say this is a second. That's just a little bash scripting saying push this out, and then I'll use this command over here, which is append this to README, and I'm going to tab that out. I'll use the up arrow and I'll cat that, make sure that I added that line to the file. So this README file has been updated. So this is the use case for GitHub. I've updated this locally. I want to git add. Now git add is going to be just adding this to our staged files. So let me just look at the status first. So git, usually you want to be pretty you want to use git status a lot, okay? There. So basically what it says is changes are not staged to commit, but we've modified the README file. Now what I'll do is I'll use git add, as it's telling me, to stage this. That's step one. And I want to tell it particularly what to stage. I'm going to go ahead and git status again, and you can say it's modified, but it's also staged, right? So it's ready to be committed. The next step is git commit, and I'm going to add a message, and the message should always be there, otherwise it'll pop up a text browser and ask you to do it that way. It also should be short, because these are logged messages, so you want it to be on one line. So in this case I'm going to say git commit, and then I say added line to README. Maybe you'll do something more creative later, but what you can see is one file changed with one insertion, added line to README. Now the next step will be git commit. Oh, I already committed, so the next step will be git push. Okay, so this is going to push it out to the web. So you can see that there's only been one commit here. If we just look at this, one commit 4 minutes ago. Let me go ahead and push. So again, we're git pushing. Now we can see that it was successful, right? compressed the objects, wrote the objects, and sent them to this site, which is a website, right? That's what we're looking at on the web. And I can ask about the local status, git status. Okay, so it says your branch is up to date with the main branch. And then the other thing is we have this one here. What I'm going to do is I'll refresh, and it should show the change, right? So now my collaborators can see my update, right? Let's see. Here's the change right here. And interestingly enough, added line to README. There it is. This is the second line. So you see this second line has been added to that README file. Okay. All right, so that's that. Now, if your collaborator, and we'll just experiment with this a little bit. Let's say your collaborator did something. This is, and I'm just doing this on the web. You don't want to do this. The collaborator would be doing this locally. A third line. Okay, so I'll save that, and this would be another commit. Collaborator. Okay, so that I commit those changes, and we should see a third change go in once this is done. Okay, so look at the history. And you can see these three, right? These three changes. Now this is not in my local machine, right? If I go back to my command line and I go ahead and say git fetch, so that what that's going to do is it's going to ask the web, you know, what's been changed, but it's not doing anything. Git status, right? So we check the local status. Your branch is behind the branch by one commit, right? So what I want to do now is get that new change in, and I'll just prove it to you. If I ls and I cat that readme, right, you can see that the third line's not there yet. So what I'll do is I'll git pull, and that's going to pull from the web. You always want to pull before you do anything. So we're going to get that change, and I can go ahead and git status now. You can see that we're up to date with the origin and main. And then the second thing over here would be to actually verify that the change is gone if we want to, if we want to. And you can see there's the third line. Okay, so those are the basic git flow commands. Hopefully that's useful. And then let's just take a little look at this slide deck, and you can see that you can see this cloning from a repository. It's sort of a subset of commands. It's got the git clone, git fetch, and git status. And then you might want to do updating a repository where you do git status. We pull before we do anything. Then once we make some changes, right, we git add to stage, git commit with a message to commit, and then finally git push. And those are the two basic workflows for GitHub. Okay, hopefully that's helpful. If you like what you see, put it in the comments. If you want to see something that I've mentioned or something that you think would be a nice bite-sized usable piece that would really change people's abilities and lives, coding lives, let me know and I'll make another video. All right, thank you very much, and I'll see you next time.